Happy Monday, and welcome into PHNX Sun Devils, presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com, use code BBPHNX for 15% off your first order. I am your passenger princess in the driver's seat yet again to start the week, Eric Ruby, and joined alongside me, Brad Denny, Speak of the Devils podcast over at 3TV. Really happy to tap in with Brad again. It's been a couple of weeks since we chatted a little ASU football. The bye week is officially behind us. We do have some unfortunate news when it comes to Xavier Alford that we'll get into. And we'll talk about, do we feel like the Sun Devils are still going to be able to, even if it's just a sliver, contend in a wild Big 12 after what was a pretty interesting weekend of football. I want to remind everybody to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, become a member today like Rob in the chat, Sharon in the chat, green names, badges next to the name. Sharon, I think you have a new badge because you've been doing this for a couple of months now. Get access to exclusive videos, exclusive emojis, a prepaid super chat every month. But Brad, one, thanks for being here. Two, how you doing?
Well, thanks for having me on. Always enjoy talking to you. And yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Some interesting ASU news as you mentioned that we'll dive into. But I wish my Steelers had not fallen flat on national TV yesterday. But other than that, I think I'm doing pretty well.
Hey, man, if we're going to talk about NFL teams not being too successful, as a Cardinals fan, unfortunately, I'm not even going to say we're in the same boat because our level of lack of success is much higher. But you know what? I don't want to get into that. I want to get into this football team because even though, relatively speaking, it's been a little disappointing compared to the expectations we came into the season, this is still an ASU football team that's sitting at 6-3, bowl eligible with 3 games left in the season, getting ready for West Virginia. Unfortunately, it will be a familiar scene for the team, not having Xavier Alford. The safety's been out for practically the whole season. At this point, hasn't played in a Big 12 game, and Kenny Dillingham announced at his press conference earlier today, Brad, that he will be done for the season. You and I chatted a bit about it before we got live here, but we feel so bad for the kid. I mean, not a nicer guy, I think, in college athletics. This is just brutal news.
You absolutely have to feel for the kid. He is. I really think that he might be the most important person in this kind of Kenny Dillingham era. Now, of course, Cam Scadaboo did what he did last year, but I think in terms of what you look at, what he did on the field, but also setting the tone of the culture off the field. Of course, he comes in that first year, NCAA does their tomfoolery. He's not able to play, but he remained like the most positive, upbeat individual and really kind of immediately established himself as one of the key leaders in that locker room, and then finally gets on the field a season ago, all Big 12 first team. We saw what he was able to do, and just, unfortunately having that injury kind of in the off season and just never able to shake. And he's just been such a key part on and off the field. He's, Kenny Dillingham at one point, saying like, I don't really have to give like pregame speeches. I just turn things over to X, and he does that. And just, some of the snippets there, you see, he is just such the heart and soul of this team. Now, of course, his future is kind of still in question. He has the ability to come back for another year, or maybe take his chances in the NFL draft. But man, just as you mentioned, there's just very few people that maybe are better people and individuals and people of character than Xavier Alford. So it's been really unfortunate to see him not be on the field, but he's been there at practices, at games, doing as much as he can. But man, just that's a huge hole, and just some really some bummer news today.
Yeah, absolutely bummer news. I mean, yeah, from a personal perspective, like you mentioned, pregame speeches, every time we've talked to any teammates or whatever, and you bring up the name Xavier Alford or X, they light up. And when you have this culture shifting couple of years at Arizona State, it can't just be the coaches that perpetuate that, right? And I'm not saying Xavier Alford's the only guy who's done that, because quite a few players have, but it takes a special type of leader to be at that vocal forefront and to be somebody who's leading amongst peers instead of a coach who is naturally, literally based off your job description, leading. And it's like the position that Xavier Alford plays in safety, isn't always what the leadership role on the team is. A lot of the times it goes to your quarterback or your running back. But when you look at X, not just a leader of the defense, but a leader of the team, I think even beyond that, though, Brad, I think one of the most underrated things that Arizona State has had to overcome this season, right? You've had the Sam Levitt injury, the Jordan Tyson injury, the Ben Coleman injury. You've had injuries galore. You've had a couple other problems, red zone problems, penalty problems. I think one of the most underrated things that this team has had to battle through for a majority of the season and for the entirety of Big 12 play is not having what many, including myself, consider to be their best defensive player this entire season. If he wasn't the best, he was certainly in the conversation with CJ Fight and Keith Abney. This is somebody that, by all money on my account, was going to be in the NFL this upcoming year, right? Was going to be maybe the best, not just in the Big 12 at his position, but one of the best in the country fighting for an All-America spot. ASU hasn't had that guy all year. And, they've done pretty good without him. But I think when you're looking back at, 6-3 and maybe why this team hasn't hit its ceiling, Xavier Alford not being on the field is a very big part of that.
Yeah, and Boogie Wilson's played really well, I thought, and obviously a younger guy, he's kind of the future of that position. But yeah, I mean, all offseason, it was just, Alford and Rouser, is this, safety tandem, up there with the Randall and Simone, the Darby, Keelan, John, some of the best modern tandems there. And yeah, this culture is, coach fed, player led, and that's something that this coaching staff has really wanted to instill since the jump. And mentioned like Alford's been at the forefront of being one of those guys that has been so important. And, he's been around this entire season, and it's mentioned, doing what he can. But I think that leadership aspect that you mentioned, it's different. Being a guy that's not in uniform on game day, not being out there. Yeah, he's still talking to the guy. He's still being involved, but I think there's something different. And like on the offensive side, Ben Coleman being out for, he's such a crucial leader on that offensive line. He's been around the program and coming back post surgery, but there's just something different from a guy that's kind of in those player leaders that just when they're not out there, when they're just kind of on the sideline in the locker room. I think that there's something a little bit different there. And then, of course, the play that he brought, and then just to the all Big 12 caliber, I thought he was a guy that we could contend for All-American status. And, while Boogie Wilson's done well in the spot starts, but just not having a guy like Alford out there in the locker room in that same capacity. And of course, on that back line of the defense it's just been kind of a bummer. And this defense has played really well and through all the obstacles. But yeah, just it could have been just that difference, that goes from like really good to legitimately great if he had been there for the duration of the season.
Wes BZ in the chat, Father Champ Westbrooks says Alford is a leader of men and has been missed for sure. Vocal leader and a baller. And like you mentioned, like he's still around as a vocal leader, but it's nothing against him, but when you're not on the field, right, like that, it's a little different. Plus, I've loved what we've seen from Boogie Wilson. Hell, I think Boogie's been one of the most fun players to watch this season. He's had some of the biggest plays this year. Of course, thinking back to that TCU game and that massive interception that was in a trio of defensive turnovers that were forced, which is the only reason why Arizona State was even able to win that game, despite putting 500 yards of offense up on the board. Different conversation for a different day. But with Boogie and to see his emerging like play, it's a testament to the coaching staff, it's a testament to the team, and it's a testament to Boogie. And we've seen a lot of guys have to step up, that were in the too deep and then end up being starting. But it's not a matter of you don't get to see Boogie Wilson if Xavier Alford is out there. It's you get both of them. And any great college football team in the Big 12, SEC, Big 10, ACC, they're deep. They're deep. And this was supposed to be a great team. I still think they're good. And obviously their ceiling is limited given the injuries that they've had to deal with. But if you are able to have that tandem, that is a game changer with also having Keith Abney, who I think has been the best at his position in the Big 12. And I just think that your secondary in general just gets so much stronger and everybody plays a little bit better. Maybe you do go into Utah, right, and have a better defensive performance if a guy like X is out there, because that was the flattest performance we've seen from this defense. I don't think that he's automatically changing how many wins and losses you have, but it's hard not to think about the what if.
Oh, absolutely. And a guy like Boogie Wilson, when he initially came in here, they were looking at him more at least for this year, looking at that nickel spot. Now, Kendrick Breedlove, I thought has gotten better as the season gone on, had some ups and downs, of course. But yeah, you mentioned just the overall depth that secondary, which is already deep coming in, would have it if it had its arguably best player or best safety option there for the duration. And so many of those guys are versatile pieces. Montana Warren, you can move him around. Boogie Wilson is a guy that you can move around. Even some of the corners, you can slide them in and have them play in the slot or play some nickel as well. But the overall depth is one of the things that I think is really a hallmark of this team. And Josh Amura and those guys that have been kind of in the front office capacity in this new era of college football, assembling this team that has been able to weather a lot of these huge injury hits. And whether it is a Jeff Sims stepping up at some of these younger guys, or finding a Boogie Wilson, some those pieces that can come in and step in and play meaningful reps. Now, of course, ASU, the trajectory isn't necessarily what a lot of folks, myself included, thought they would be through 9 games of the season. And the injuries are just an unfortunate reality of that situation. But I think overall, just the depth has been really good. And this is not, you look at that 2023 season, just most of the offensive line gets wiped out, your quarterback room gets wiped out, but still they were so much thinner. And obviously the season went in the way that it did. But I think this 2025 season is a testament to obviously the resiliency, the character of this program, but also just the younger guys. Some of those guys on the offensive line, Kai Stewart stepping up at left guard, making playing some critical downs. Champ Westbrook's Jalen Clem at those tackle spots, playing some meaningful ball. Let alone what's been happening at center in the wake of Ben Coleman's injury. But yeah, when you miss your Jordan Lev or your Jordan Tyson, Sam Levitt, Xavier Alford, your team's not going to be as good. Just simply put, when you're missing some of your best players for prolonged stretches, if not the season, you're not going to be as good. But the fact that there has been some limited drop off, and the ASU or the Sun Devils are still very much in the race, and has still have a really good, objectively good season in their grasp, I think really speaks to kind of the direction and trajectory of the program.
Here's the $1 million question, Brad. Obviously, we know that this hurts ASU right now. There is a chance that this long-term helps ASU next year. If Xavier Alford does, in fact, decide to not only return to college football, but stay here at Arizona State. We do a gut check, or we call it the jellies. Like, what are your jellies telling you? Brad, what do your jellies tell you about Xavier Alford's future, either in Tempe, in college football, or in the NFL?
Yeah, that's a little tough at this point. I do think that right now, because he does have that year to come back, and let alone anything beyond that in terms of a medical redshirt. But I think that with that year of eligibility, the way things transpired so far this year, and the way that maybe you see like a Sam Levitt now, all of a sudden, a guy who was perhaps looked at as this is the year, and then he's off to the NFL. Maybe you're seeing some of these guys that come back for one more season, and the rent might still be due in the Big 12 on that back line with Xavier Alford here coming to collect in 26. Because not a whole lot of good tape. He was that game and a half that he played earlier this year. He's playing hurt, so not necessarily the best stuff to put out there. Whenever I'm not exactly sure the timeline for him to get back to 100%. So that again, that could impact any kind of pre-draft situation. So I think obviously, when you look at things, kind of pull back from a 30,000-foot view, I think that the gut might be saying we have not seen the last of Alford and Maroon Gold.
Yeah, if I had to check in with my gut, check in with my jellies, I think X would come back. And I think if he does stay in college football, which you never know, maybe a team really likes him and he talks to him in the pre-draft process, or scouts have been telling him, hey, man, like you'd be a so-and-so pick, and that's good enough for him to want to just get to the NFL, because he has definitely had a journey to get here. I think if he stays in college football, I can't imagine he goes to another team. And maybe that's just a little bias from me, and I feel the same way about a lot of guys on this program, but even in the modern era of college athletics, I just can't see him going to another team. And maybe I'm blind, Brad, but I'd rather be blind right now than pessimistic.
Everybody has a price, but there's certain prices that I just think are so inconceivable. And he has just been one of those fixtures, those cornerstones of the program. He loves being a Sun Devil. He appreciates and understands what this program and this experience has done for him, and to come back and kind of bolt would be utterly shocking to me. So yeah, I think if we do see him coming back and playing some more college ball, I think it's definitely going to be with the Sun Devils.
All right. We've talked about Xavier Alford. We've talked about next season, but the reality is there are still 3 more games left. West Virginia, Colorado, and then Arizona. Does ASU still have a chance to be contenders in the Big 12? And is it even up to them? We'll talk about all that on the other side of our first break. Listen, I absolutely love telling you guys about Gila River Resorts and Casinos because, quite frankly, nobody does it better. Whether it's Wild Horse Pass, Lone Butte, Vequiva, or Santan Mountain, you can experience the best that the Valley has to offer. Obviously, we love all of our watch parties that we have out there at Wild Horse Pass. Of course, we had the Peach Bowl and, of course, the Big 12 Championship watch party there. Last year, tons of Suns and Cardinals watch parties as well. But you can also just go out for a night out on the town or go for a staycation at any of the resorts, relax, kick back by the pool, and then go and get some nice food, from upscale to approachable, from casual to classy, from bar to bar none. Their selection of dining options are always in good taste. It's an unprecedented level of entertainment and excitement that you won't find anywhere else in the desert. So you do you. At Gila River Resorts and Casinos, visit playatgila.com for more details. And we like to joke around on this show, but if you've been in a serious accident and sustained a serious injury, it is obviously no laughing matter. And that's why you need to write down this number, 602-783-8841, or visit husbandandwifelawteam.com. Of course, that is the husband and wife law team. Mark and Alexis Breyer, their team brings hundreds of years of combined trial experience. The practice is 100% dedicated to injury and wrongful death. And from the day the firm opened, their focus has been on helping people during some of the most challenging times of their lives. Even if you are not currently dealing with an injury, have this number, put this website down. Maybe a friend needs it. Maybe, unfortunately, you need it in the future, and you can cancel their fee agreement at any time for any reason, and you'll receive as much in your pocket as they receive for their fee. So once again, call the husband and wife law team first at 602-783-8841, or visit their website at husbandandwifelawteam.com. Big shout out to everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us here on PHNX. Sun Devils, Totri still partying it up out in Cabo, as Anthony Totri does. But hit that like button in the meantime. Hit that subscribe button. I have more than enough help to get me through, with Brad Denny joining me and another special guest later on in this show. Brad, ASU sitting at 6-3. And after this weekend of Big 12 football, it still feels like there's a real slim chance that they are able to get into the Big 12 championship. Of course, they have to take care of business and win all 3 games. So let's start with that first. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence level on Arizona State ending this regular season 9-3, beating West Virginia at home, Colorado on the road, and then U of A back at home to end the season?
7. I mean, the Big 12 routinely shows us that anything will happen. That logic and reason, even echoing the kind of that the Pac-12 after dark thing. Logic and reason have no place here. And so, when you look at these remaining 3 games, ASU should win all 3. They're better than all 3 teams objectively. Now that doesn't mean anything, but I think you're getting 2 of your trickiest games at home. That's, I think, a huge benefit. Now, one thing I am kind of curious to see is how the Sun Devil offense does after that Iowa State breakthrough with Jeff Sims leading that very potent offensive attack. Flash in the pan, or is that something that's a little bit more sustainable? Have they finally kind of cracked that code there to have an effective offense with Jeff Sims at the helm? But then, of course, you go into Boulder against the Colorado team that is in complete and utter disarray, and then a U of A team which is better. I don't know if they're good. I don't know. I've seen some folks say their record's a little bit fraudulent. I don't know about that, but I just don't know that it's necessarily as good, because when you look at some of the better teams that they play, they've not necessarily stacked up, and it's at home. But of course, Territorial Cup caveat, and you throw the records out the window. Ultimately, yeah, I think ASU is well positioned to end seven or with the wins and the final few games. 9-3, I think, is sitting right there. And then, of course, through all this injury stuff, it's still wild that a 10-win year, something that has been so rare in the Tempe, from a historical perspective, is still there on the table. And but yeah, I think that all doesn't matter if you can't take care of business against a scrappy West Virginia team that has put together a couple wins in a row.
Yeah, let's talk about West Virginia a little bit. I don't know if they've necessarily figured something out, but obviously 2 weekends ago, they take down a Houston team that the week prior had taken down Arizona State at home. They go into Houston and beat them in a high scoring affair. And then, yeah, they beat Colorado this past weekend. That game a little bit closer than honestly I expected it to be, despite West Virginia only having one Big 12 win at the time that they played. Which do you feel like West Virginia is more like? The team that beat Houston, a good team, then a ranked team at home, or one that struggled to put away Colorado at their own home turf?
I would say somewhere in the middle, probably maybe skewing a little bit closer to what we saw this past weekend. Now they've been really racked by injuries, and that's something that ASU fans, of course, can relate to. But they've been scrappy, and obviously with a Rich Rod team, they're going to be really looking at that run game. I think they have the fourth most rush attempts in the entire FBS. But that defense, kind of flipping the script there, has been really good against the run, averaging, I believe, under 3.7 yards per carry allowed to opponents. Now, but on the flip side, their pass defense has been pretty poor. Now, Colorado's not a team that's obviously going to make you pay through the air. And obviously, if Sam Levitt was in the lineup, maybe it's a different conversation. And you're still going to be another week without Jordan Tyson. But I do think one of the key things and takeaways that we saw from ASU in Ames was Jeff Sims being able to take some shots downfield and connect on those shots, get Jalen Moss involved, Malik McClain. Obviously, Shimon Mateer has been his security blanket through and through. So I think that balance will be very crucial. But this is not a West Virginia team that I think is going to lay down for anybody. Rich Rod knows Tempe. He knows what lays in store for him in terms of kind of a hostile atmosphere. ASU always seems to play better there, but this isn't a game that I think ASU fans should overlook, despite, I believe ASU opened up a 10 and a half point favorite. This is a scrappy team, and that has been finding ways to get better as the season goes on, despite all the injury issues. They're starting Scotty Fox at quarterback. He's been open the season a little bit down on the depth chart. Some of the running backs as well have been really racked. I believe they have had a linebacker score 2 rushing touchdowns, having to find some semblance of some ground game support there as well. So I think that this is a scrappy team, and as they showed, they can go on the road and take care of some good quality teams in this conference. So ASU better not be overlooking them as the home stretch of the season hits.
Yeah, I don't know if they can overlook anybody at this point. I sure hope not after a bye week. I'm curious from your perspective, because going into that Iowa State game, I told myself and I told Tocher, I told everybody here that I'm like, I think it's on the defense to really win ASU this game. I don't think it's as much on Jeff Sims. And while I think the defense played a really big role in that, Jeff Sims had a record-breaking performance for Arizona State at the quarterback position on the ground. Do you feel like it's more in Jeff Sims' hands to continue to play, and obviously the coaching staff and making sure that he plays, but just from his individual performance, do you feel like 3-0 over the last 3 games of the season is more on Jeff Sims finding a way to recreate what he did against Iowa State? Or is it, hey, show up with your defense, shut down the opposing offense, and then our offense just do what you can get done?
I do think it's going to be falling more on Jeff Sims, especially after what we saw in the game plan. Because I think the first couple starts, since he last year, Utah, it was just basically, hey, Jeff, don't lose the game for us. Don't put the ball in jeopardy. And it was really conservative. And obviously those games turned out in the fashion that they did. And, Joe and I on Speaking of the Devils heading into the Iowa State game, we're really saying, you know what? It's almost like you're playing with house money against Iowa State. Everybody thinks you're going to lose. Sam Levitt is out for the year. Uh, just kind of take the shackles off a little bit. Let this offense open up. Jeff Sims, for all his ups and downs throughout his career, is an extremely gifted, talented athlete. He's got a very strong arm, throws a very tight spiral. He's a very gifted runner, and Speedy can do a number of things in the quarterback run game. And there's let unleash Jeff Sims, and we saw the full Jeff Sims experience. We saw the great runs. We saw the downfield strikes. we also saw some of those turnovers that have really been, hampering him throughout his career. But I think, we've seen enough data so far this year. ASU's defense is going to be really good. They're going to hold a team, mid 20s and below. So I think, if you're all the hopes to finish the season 9-3, still keep those hopes to get back to Arlington alive, I think are going to fall on the offense. And having that balance of being able to have that quarterback run game, I think they, against Iowa State, they probably could have mixed Raleek Brown in a little bit more. And obviously when Jeff Sims, that carry count was pushing, are getting close to 30, maybe not the best situation there, but having that balance, I think, is going to be very crucial. We saw in the last couple of weeks some more receivers and pass catchers get involved. If things continue on the track that Kenny Dillingham says, you'll get Jordan Tyson back for the last 2 games, which will be a huge boost as well. So I do think that we've seen enough from the defensive side that, okay, we know what they're going to do, what we need to accomplish from an offensive perspective. So I think it's going to be interesting, especially now that, it's not just kind of a question like, is Sam going to play? Jeff Sims is your guy for the duration. So you can game plan and scheme your offense accordingly and add, I think now after that success in Iowa State, you can now iterate off that going forward and add some additional wrinkles to keep those defenses honest.
M in the chat wants me to ask, what's up with Kanye Udo? I think we're all kind of asking that same question, right? Where going into the season, it was going to be a 3-headed running back room, at least by all of our money. I don't know about you, Brad, but that's what we kind of imagined. And then obviously Kyson Brown's been injured. Raleek Brown has been the workhorse there, even though he's fallen off production-wise the last month or so. Kanye Udo nowhere to be found except for a couple blocking plays. Is there any room for him to get involved over the last couple of games?
Room, yes, but I do think that right now we have clearly seen Demarius Man Robinson kind of overtake him on the depth chart. I think Kanye, coming in obviously from that triple option offense at Army, there was some issues kind of getting acclimated a little bit. I thought his performance in fall camp was better, and of course he had that breakout against Mississippi State. But I think as the course of the season has gone on, you're looking further down that depth chart. Raleek Brown is the dude right now, but I think you've seen Demarius Robinson, a very promising true freshman, really kind of step up. He's been a capable receiver. Runner in his limited opportunities, but also he's a guy that has really impressed me in practices and in camp, and being that guy doing the dirty work and playing special teams and pass protection as well. So I think there is perhaps a role in certain situations, but I think right now you got Robinson as your RB2. And again, this is an offense that is every year they'll come in and say, well, we're going to get some more guys involved in the backfield, but every year there's always one dude that's kind of the bell cow back. I thought and it might have turned out in a different way if Kyson had stayed healthy, that Kyson was going to be that guy, given his ability to do kind of everything pretty well. But Raleek has really impressed me throughout the course of the season. You mentioned tailing off a little bit, but we'll see exactly if he's able to finish strong. But this is an offense that likes to have one guy out there, and perhaps more veteran presence than a true freshman Robinson. But I do think that maybe there might be something for Udo, but I think right now it's probably more of an effort or more of a situation where you've seen some of the guys behind him really kind of catch the coach's eye in a more favorable fashion.
We got Brad Denny, of course, Speak of the Devils podcast over at 3TV. We really appreciate you, Brad. Before you get out of here, Lee Corso in the chat always takes time to join us. Lee, a long time ago in the chat, asked this question, says, Brad's the man, but would love to hear his comments. I know this is looking ahead, but what do you guys think about the Arizona game? Clown's already saying ASU would lose to Arizona.
No. Okay. I mean, I've covered this team. I've been, born and raised in Phoenix. My dad was a Sun Devil alum as well. So I've been around this rivalry for a long time. Anything can happen. We've seen some just weird stuff happen. But I think if you look at all the totality, even with Jeff Sims, taking over the offense, this is a much better ASU team than a U of A squad as currently constructed. U of A is good. I mean, they've made some improvements in Brett Brennan's second year, although some of the things that they've done haven't been exactly impressive. I think their trajectory is in a more positive direction than this time last year. But I just don't think that this is a situation where, especially in Tempe, if it was in Tucson, yes, maybe that door's open.
Nobody shows up to those games, Brad.
That's true, but I also think that building's cursed. It's just it's a bad stadium, and there's just some weird vibes to it. But I just think that when you look at the totality of what these teams have accomplished, what they've gone through, the current composition of each roster. This maybe next year when ASU's maybe replacing a little bit more, it might be a bit more competitive game. But I'm not going to close the door. I don't want this to end up an unfreezing cold takes or something like that. But right now, I think ASU is well positioned to run the table, especially in retaining that territorial cup.
Yeah, look, I think that this has been a season that if you're a U of A fan on paper, you get really happy about. I think if you're an ASU fan, look, I think you should be happy about this season too, because Brent Brennan's job security just went up, 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 up. And I do not think that guy is a good coach. I like the coordinators. Obviously, Danny Gonzalez out there. I think Seth Dagey is also really good. But Brent Brennan in general, I mean, he's basically stopped his team from having 2 more wins this season. And they've competed against some good teams, Houston and BYU. But realistically, U of A's schedule has just been and they're going to play Cincinnati, I believe, this upcoming weekend. That'll be interesting to see how they really fare against Brendan Sorsby and company, especially because Sorsby and company were on a bye week after getting smashed by Utah the week before. So they're definitely going to be coming out with a little bit of a taste for blood, a little bit of vengeance on their mind. I think realistically, you're thrilled if you're a U of A fan making a bowl game in year 2 of Brent Brennan. But I think if you're an ASU fan, I think you're thrilled because I'd be shocked if they move on from Brent Brennan, which would probably be best for the program moving forward. Everything I've heard and I've experienced at Big 12 Media Day, Brent Brennan's a good guy. Like I have nothing bad to say about him personally. But it just, as far as results on the football field, we have our U of A show here. I hear it all the time. It's just complaining about what he does. It's rarely ever like, woo, Brent Brennan nailed it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Wildcats here in the newsroom, and we of course talk ball a little bit, and not a one is thrilled with him and the prospects. Yeah, you mentioned, I think some of these wins and get into a bowl, like, it's just going to be like 2-3 more years of this guy. Like, I think the coordinator hires were absolutely great, and you've seen the defense, especially for the Wildcats, I think be very promising in terms of just what could be the strength and identity of a program like that, but. Yeah, I think that there's that when you have a guy like Brennan who's a good, competent coach, but not somebody that's necessarily going to elevate this program into all of a sudden going to be a team that can make a run at the Big 12 title. So I think ASU fans should be feeling pretty good about the prospects this year. And as long as Brennan's there and as long as Kenny's in seat, I think that the edge in the rivalry will always be pointing north.
That being said, anything could happen. You got to still go out there and beat them. You're down a lot of guys. Like, you never know. But Brad, one thing I do know is our chat loves you. So much love for you in the chat. Sharon saying Brad is awesome. Wes Beasy saying we appreciate all you do, Brad. Thanks for all the updates on the team. Us dads find solace in your posts and pics. For those who are unaware of what it is exactly that you do, obviously, if they like this show, they might be pretty interested in figuring out what you got going on. Floor is yours. Let the people know what you're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, host Speak of the Devils with Joe Healy, who's the son of Tim Healy, the voice of the Sun Devils. We've been doing that since 2011, which is wild to think about all the stuff we've talked about over the years. You can find the show on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. We release our main show Tuesday nights and then kind of have a supplementary show on Friday mornings. We also are on Arizona's Family Sports Network on the TV side of things. Weekly at Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. You can follow me on all things social media at BDenny29 as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. We appreciate you joining us. People in the chat still going in there saying, yes, sir, OG Brad. I follow Brad's channel to Speak of the Devils, the original Sun Devils podcast, The True Goats. Been listening since 2012. Much love. So definitely one of the great voices in what's a great Sun Devil community. So appreciate you being here, Brad. We'll definitely have to talk to you again, if not during this season, sometime during the offseason, hopefully talking about a 10-3 ASU football team.
Absolutely. Always happy to come on. And maybe Totri won't duck me next time.
Look, man, they take it up with him. All I know is whenever Totri's gone, we either get ASU players in the chat. We've had Shimon in the chat. We've had Champ in the chat. We had the entire tight end room in the chat when Totri wasn't here. Or Phil Mickelson commented on our last show tweet randomly about Kenny. It's just whenever all the stars come out when Totri's not here, including Brad Denny of Speak of the Devil.
Oh, okay. Interesting. There might be some science behind that. We'll see.
So take it as a compliment that Totri's ducking you, because that's when the stars, when the big time celebrities show up, and we appreciate big time celebrity Brad Denny taking some time out of his day to join us. Thanks, Brad.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we are going to talk about the rest of the Big 12 slate over the weekend. Plus, I'll have Chance Johnson, who covers the Big 12 from a whole, join me a little bit later to talk about a little ASU football. But that's right, JJ, I hope you're in the chat. We're talking about Masamba Giop, and we're talking about ASU hoops. But first, some more football talk on the other side of this break. Look, you see it on my head right now. It's a branded Bills hat. I love my branded Bills hats, not just because they have my favorite teams, whether it's the Phoenix Suns or whether it's Arizona State or hell, even the company I work for, because it's our own custom branded Bills hat in PHNX. It's just the quality. Look, these things do not deteriorate at all. The logo stays on, and no threads are popping out. It looks just as good as it did when I took it from our office when Shane was on vacation, and he's been super jealous ever since. Look, I've thrown these babies in the washer. I wear them to work out. They come out the other side of it pristine. Brandon Bill's highest quality that I could imagine out of hats. And if you're looking for some gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, well, Brandon Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Snapbacks, truckers, fitted, beanies, or tees, they have you covered with performance and style. Head to brandonbills.com. Use code BBPHNX. That's BBPHNX at brandonbills.com for 15% off your first order. We all love Mountain America Stadium. So if you're an ASU fan, you've got to love Mountain America Credit Union. Listen, $250 to support university athletics for every field goal made. That is a pledge from Mountain America Credit Union. They also provide $20,000 in scholarships to local student athletes each year, and they sponsor a shoe donation program to award brand new shoes to community members in need. But even when it comes to you can get a My Style checking account with perks just for you. Restaurant deals, mobile phone protection, telehealth access, identity protection, loan rate discounts, offers on travel and events, and so much more. Not only can you support ASU by using Mountain America Credit Union, but you can also make my style your lifestyle at Mountain America Credit Union. Visit macu.com/mystyle to apply. Insured by NCUA. Membership required. Based on eligibility, some benefits require no cost registration and activation. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me here on PHNX. Sun Devils will be joined by another guest here in just a second, but I want to take a second and look at the Big 12 slate from this past weekend. Houston picking up a 3-point win over UCF. Houston has not looked great ever since beating ASU, losing to West Virginia, and then only beating a UCF team that has one Big 12 victory by 3 on the road. Of course, the big game over the weekend, Texas Tech absolutely stifled BYU. Now ASU fans look at BYU and say they might need to lose another game. It's a very, very wild Big 12 race, especially with Cincy off for the week. Of course, Cincinnati and BYU do play each other in the upcoming week, so that'll be very interesting to watch. I thought the vindication about the BYU takes. Look, you have to give BYU credit for the season that they've had so far. You have to. I mean, they were one of the best teams in the country, just record-wise, statistically speaking. But whenever you watch them, they just weren't that great. And then Texas Tech goes and just beats the crap out of them. I'm really excited to welcome on our next guest here, friend of mine and Big 12 overall reporter, not just football, but basketball, everything Big 12. Want to welcome Chance Johnson to the show. Chance, an ASU alum, somebody I met out in Cronkite. How you doing, my guy?
Just got a flat tire and sitting in my car right now waiting for it to be fixed. I'm doing well, man. Doing well.
No way,
obviously another
man.
exciting week, man. Yeah, so it's that's why I'm in live from the car. But I had to hop on with my guys. So especially since we have other people who want to take vacations in the middle of like the prime sports season. We won't name any names, but you know how it goes.
Look,
I appreciate your hard work. Let me just say that to you, sir.
thank you. Chance, I appreciate your hard work, showing up. Look, some guys, they go to Cabo in the middle of the season. Other guys call into a show that's not even theirs when they have a flat tire. I mean, let's talk about really who's committed to the cause.
But absolutely. Thanks for having me on, though, man. Excited to chop it up with you.
Well, dude, thanks for just tapping in from the flat tire mobile. I want to take a brief look at football, and then I want to talk a little hoops with you, Chance, because I know that you love hoops. I know we had you on PHNX Suns with the KD Jalen Green trade, and I'm a little excited. I can't lie, a little excited about what we're seeing out of GOP and ASU hoops so far this season. But when you look at the Big 12 as a whole, ASU 6-3, a big win for Texas Tech over the weekend. Cincinnati still very much in the race. Utah still in the race. Where do you put ASU among contenders in the Big 12? And do you feel like they still have a chance, even if it's slim, to find their way back to Dallas?
Listen, if as a journalist, my job is to be honest. And honestly speaking, I don't think the chances look great, right? I think we can all kind of see that. But crazy things have happened. We saw that just last year with his Arizona State team. But to me, obviously Texas Tech is leading the race right now, and the rest of their schedule favors pretty nicely for them. And then BYU and Cincinnati really kind of have the opportunity to control their own destiny. And so those two teams, who both have one loss, have an opportunity to, the winner of that game more than likely will probably meet Tech in that one. And then even with that, Houston's lurking. Utah still, has an opportunity to get in. And so and to your question about Arizona State, I don't think the odds look very great. But as I mentioned earlier, crazier things certainly have happened. But first things first, they have to win out, right? And so with no Sam Levitt for the rest of the season, the Jeff Sims story is awesome. But can he help them, finish out the season? That will remain to be seen.
So who do you look at as maybe the best two teams in the Big 12? Obviously, records and head-to-heads and what happens to the rest of the season will determine who actually meets in the Big 12 championship. But if you had to pick the two elite of the elite from the Big 12, is it the two teams that faced off this past weekend in BYU and Tech?
Actually, the answer to that question, at least for me, is no. I think Texas Tech is the best team in the conference, and even though they went head to head, and I know BYU fans, especially because they're rivals, they'll this. I think Utah is the better team, more talented team. It helped BYU. They played that game in Provo, and credit to them. They won that game. It was a great game by Kalani Sitake and company. But I think right now, like especially as the Utes, even though they not made the Big 12 championship, they still have an opportunity to make the playoffs, as they were ranked number 13 in the last playoff rankings. So they still have an opportunity to get in. And with that defense and how dynamic Devin Pierre is, I don't know if you're a team that wants to see a Utah team, and certainly with Texas Tech, I think Tech is a good enough team that can really beat any team outside maybe like the top guys. Like, oh, they're just such a unit. But to me, I think in the Big 12 right now, I had to go Texas Tech and Utah being the top two teams. And then BYU, they certainly will have an opportunity to, once again, if they win out, they have an opportunity to potentially see Texas Tech again. Their wide receivers, hey, we'll see them again in Arlington and we'll beat them. So we'll see in about a month here if that actually that'll be true.
Where do you see Cincinnati figuring into all of this? I think they've been one of the biggest surprises so far this season. Brendan Soares has been playing out of his mind. Where do they fall into the Big 12 hierarchy for you?
Yeah, to me, I would have them after BYU, and as I mentioned, they would after Utah. So I will go Texas Tech, Utah, BYU, and then Cincinnati. Excuse me. I like Brendan Sorsby. I think, as you mentioned, Cincinnati has really been one of the surprises of the Big 12. I would say Cincinnati and U of H have been the two surprising teams. But we saw what Utah was able to do to them. Now, mind you, it was a road game for the Bearcats, but Cincinnati was just the Utes were just dominant in that one. It really checked Brendan Sorsby. It really was getting Heisman love, and the Utes pretty much shut that down. So once again, they have an opportunity coming up soon to get in and continue what's been a really impressive season overall for the Bearcats.
Yeah, I think one thing's for sure. We're seeing some Pac-12ification of the Big 12 where you never know what's going to happen on a week out basis in football and in basketball. We have our guy JJ in the chat who's a huge ASU hoops guy. Says, yo, Chance Johnson, ASU legend. Also, JJ, a legend maybe in the making locally on the court for Masamba Diop and company. We're going to talk about Bobby Hurley's squad and ASU men's basketball 2-0 start, and just how good can they be in maybe the hardest conference for college basketball. Chance Johnson joining PHNX Sun Devils. We're going to keep it rolling on the other side of this final break. Look, if you're looking for a good night out and you're looking for a fun time, might I recommend Chicken and Pickle. Chicken and Pickle is in Glendale, your go-to spot for good food, good friends, and great fun. They offer indoor and outdoor pickleball courts, delicious food, Sunday brunch buffet, yard games, a full bar with seasonal cocktails, plus tons of TVs to catch all of your favorite local games and big games, national games. Go out for a night with the family, go out on a date night, go out for a day with your friends. If you just want to go out there and have some fun, Chicken and Pickle is absolutely the best place for you to check out. Personally, I love the chicken and waffles. I will devour it in about 5 seconds every single time that I'm at there, and I love playing a little pickleball there as well. So they're serving up good times on the court and great food in the restaurant. Visit Chicken and Pickle at 9330 West Hannah Lane in Glendale, located in Westgate. Family-friendly fun awaits. Visit chickenandpickle.com to plan your visit today. Also, when you need to plan for your future, you got to check out Desert Financial Credit Union. If you're an Arizona sports fan, there's no better place for you to do your banking than Desert Financial Credit Union. Look, me personally, I've been using DFCU for my entire life. My grandparents use Desert Financial Credit Union. My parents use Desert Financial Credit Union. I use Desert Financial Credit Union. But you know what? Y'all get lucky. I didn't get this. Y'all get this. You guys can get $200 for free just by signing up for a free checking account today. They also have exclusive Arizona State branded cards along with Arizona Cardinals branded cards. I think you probably want to lean towards the first one right now with how great ASU football has been, and let Desert Financial do everything from checkings and savings accounts to mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and more. Just remember, when you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. Big shout out to all the people joining us here on a Monday. Everybody shows up except for Anthony Totri. We appreciate y'all. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We've got Chance Johnson, proclaimed by JJ to be an ASU legend. I'll second that, as well as somebody who was in school with him at the same time. A legend in the making. Add it to the resume. Calling in from a car with a flat tire. Chance, I want to talk a little ASU hoops, man. Is that okay with you? Apparently not. And we lost Chance. You there? Oh, no. Okay. Well, I think that maybe the connection was a little rough for Chance. We'll see if we can get him back in here. I guess he just didn't want to talk about more Masamba Diop. I guess it was just maybe a little bit too much for him. Let's go ahead and take a look at By the Numbers, presented by Desert Financial Credit Union, Arizona's #1 credit union, named by Forbes. Of course, the only number that matters is 81-66. Arizona State is able to beat Utah Tech. Field goal percentage, ASU leads 45.5% to 40%. Three-point percentage, ASU shot 37.5% from deep and 30% for Utah Tech. Rebounding, the edge goes ASU as well, 41 rebounds to 36, 19 assists, and 16 turnovers forced. Let's try this again with Chance. I think he was just too excited. He might have dropped his phone. Bobby Ball off to a 2-0 start in non-con.
Yeah, I think that was Totri Hayden. Because he heard me talking trash about him. That's what that was. But yeah, look, Arizona State off to a good start. Granted, they haven't really played anybody, but you can only play who's in front of you, and so far so good. Obviously, the guy that's turning everybody's heads is the big 7'1" center, and Masamba Diop, and I.
Oh my gosh, I think the Big 12, the big wigs. The bigwigs are trying to silence Chance on Diop. You know what, Chance? If you can still hear me, Chance, I think it's all good. I think the connection might just be a little rough. I do appreciate you, trying to clock in, trying to take over for where Anthony Totri is slacking. We'll have to get you on maybe when you're not dealing with a flat tire in the future. But man, we do really appreciate Chance joining us. Make sure you follow Chance at Chancellor TV. He covers the Big 12 as a whole, including basketball, football, all the sports. He really does a fantastic job. Pigeon says, can he call in just audio only? The whole thing was just going in and out. But you know what? I'm going to call an ISO. Everybody clear out. I need to talk about this 7-foot kid. Masamba Diop. Look, let's just get into the love the play presented by Arizona Lottery. Make sure you play and gift today if you are over the age of 21. Look, it took 10 seconds for the play of the game to happen. And it was an ankle-breaking three from a 7'1" freshman who's 20, but still a freshman, and Masamba Diop. Look, this kid has it. I genuinely think that this kid could be a lottery pick. It's not just the fact that was his first three of the season and it looks so smooth, and then he also nailed another one earlier in the game. It's everything with this guy. I remember, it's funny because, we work very closely with the U of A guys just in general at PHNX, and I was talking with Damon. And of course, Damon, big U of A hoops guy. And I'm like, did you see Diop? And he's like, no, I heard he was good though. Like Shane was talking about him. And I showed him the highlights, and it was from the first game. And it was the first highlight that he was just dribbling down the court. And Damon literally goes, that's not real. Like he was joking. He's like, that's AI. Like that doesn't look real. This guy in Diop, I absolutely think has not just NBA potential. I think he has lottery potential, not just because he's a big that can stretch the floor a little bit, but I don't know if I've seen a big come in with that type of feel for the game. Now, of course, he's 20 years old, so the term freshman is maybe a little gracious with him, considering the fact that he also played over in Spain in a second league, a very prestigious second league over there. But he defends the rim. He can dribble the ball. He's very explosive around the rim. Very explosive. He's got a little bit of a post game. He's got a 3-point shot. I think maybe the most underrated thing that I've seen from his game so far this season has been the passing. His passing has been awesome. And a couple of no-look dimes as well. William says, Wemby type ceiling, just got to work on staying in position to get rebounds and blocks. Look, I'm really high on Diop, man. It is tough to say Wemby type ceiling. I don't know if anybody has a Wemby type ceiling. That includes a guy like Kaman Malawach, who was drafted in the top 10 to the Suns this year. That includes Chet Holmgren over on OKC. Wemby type ceiling is definitely a little high, but I will say this, where the game is going and where the game is evolving into, having a 7-footer that doesn't just block shots and dunk is the way of the future. Look, I was a huge proponent of Jane Quains. Huge proponent of Jane Quains. I think Jane Quains still has a chance to be a top 10 pick. That's one of the best defenders I've ever seen in college basketball. And he was a freshman for ASU on a team that was so disjointed last year. I think Diop has a higher ceiling. I think Quains might have a higher floor, but even then, maybe defensively and rebounding wise, he's not the same innate, kind of like defender as Quaintance is, especially at Quaintance's age. I think he was 17 when the season started last year. So we're talking about somebody who's 3 years older when the season starts. But I don't know if Quaintance will ever have the fluidity to his game, especially his offensive game, that Diop has. And when you want to make it to the next level, I mean, to be able to hit the three, but not just, it's not just the fact that the ball goes in the hoop. And that's the thing about evaluating college basketball players, is a lot of times it's makes and it's misses, right? It's results. And that's a big part of it. But when you're evaluating for the next level, when you're evaluating for the NBA, when you're evaluating maybe for the future of college basketball, whether they're going to be a 2, 3, 4, 5, 7-year guy, you look at how do these things happen? Diop hits a three. That's awesome. In general, for a 7-foot guy, hits a three. That's great. You know who else has hit a three on a basketball court, not in college this season? Like Andre Drummond. Okay. It's the fluidity in which Masamba Diop does it. The ankle breaker was one thing, right? Making the guy fall, that's extra. That's highlight play. The fact that Diop went between his legs, stepped back, and then hit a three, and he looked like he was 6'4" with how fluid he was and how quick that movement was and how unbroken that jumper was off the dribble for a 7'1" guy who's playing his first year of college basketball. You don't see that. You do not see that often. Plus, some no-look passes, some great dimes. He's cutting well. I think you have to give a big shout out to Mo Odom, who has done a phenomenal job of setting the scene for Arizona State basketball. We knew that he was going to be able to do that. Top 5 in career assists in college basketball right now. I believe top 3 in assist to turnover percentage. This is a guy who's doing it all, including rebounding, including scoring a crazy deep three from Mo Odom against Utah Tech. And yeah, you know what? They've played Utah Tech. I think Chance had a great point. They played University of Southern Utah. They played Utah Tech. But it's not about beating those teams is why I'm excited about these individual players. It's about what we saw in their individual process. This Friday is a massive test. This Friday is Gonzaga. JJ in the chat says, yo, show up to DFA on Friday. Late tip, state of the program, yada, yada. This is Gonzaga, Pack DFA, the number 21 team in the country. In Gonzaga, it's a good test for this team. And we know that Bobby Hurley's teams notoriously do good in non-con, struggle in conference play. I am not saying this year will be different for Bobby Hurley. I am not saying that my opinion has changed. If you listen to this program for a long time, you know how I have felt about the Bobby Hurley tenure, especially over the last couple of years. There is a little bit of a different type of feeling about this team, about how they play, about how they approach the game. I think Santiago Truitt has been a really, really good forward for this team. I think Grabovich is somebody that's going to be able to kind of get better as the season goes on. As a shooter, Bryce Ford, can catch fire. We'll have to see if that does happen against some of these bigger teams. Off of the bench, Alan Mukeba, he looks good. He looks good. Marcus Adams Jr. is still kind of finding his rhythm, but I really enjoyed how he followed his own rebound and splashed a three after an air ball. They are playing fun. They're playing good basketball, but can it be sustained against good teams? And can it be sustained for the entire season? That's the real question here. You've had talent. Arizona State has had great talent. Last year was their most talented roster they might have had in the Bobby Hurley era, and that's saying a lot. But obviously it was disjointed. Now, Bobby's gone out and said that he feels like he could coach and blah, 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 and maybe that is the case. We will have to see. Obviously, last year, the vibes weren't great. That type of stuff can compound in college basketball, especially when you're getting your ass kicked in the Big 12, which is a completely tough conference, week in and week out. But we'll know if this team's legit. We'll know if Diop is legit, not just by playing Gonzaga. Maybe it takes a little bit of time to get adjusted, but once you get into Big 12 play, can these talented guys, these fun players, I do believe there's a lot of fun players on this team, actually step up and get wins? And not be the best team in conference. Look, you're looking at a Houston, and I don't think there's any way that Arizona State can compete, right? But will they be the 16th team in the conference? I don't know. Obviously, it's very different when you've played two teams that are just awful in Utah Tech and University of Southern Utah. It's tough. It's tough to predict the future with this team. But obviously, we'll see. At the end of the day, I think for Arizona State fans, I think for me, it's exciting to have a fun team that we're looking forward to. And especially a guy like Diop, if we can continue to see his considerable success and development over the next couple of years or the next couple of months. Hopefully, if he's in here for years, it's by choice. And if not, I mean, there's a chance I think that this guy 365 days from now is playing in the NBA. So it's going to be fascinating to see what Bobby can do with this team. Obviously, this is the final year of his contract. I got a feeling he's going to have to do something pretty miraculous in order to get a contract extension because you're 11, 12 years in. at this point of the Bobby experiment. I mean, if he does something miraculous with this team, can you give him a multi-year contract extension? Obviously, that's something we'll continue to talk about here on PHNX Sports. It's going to wrap it up for me. I appreciate Brad joining me for the first half of the show. Appreciate Chance attempting to join from a car with a flat tire. Tomorrow will be our final Anthony Totrila show of the week. He will be back on Wednesday, but tomorrow, I couldn't go 4 days without Totri without at least getting Ralph on twice. I'm going to bring in Ralph. We're going to do a West Virginia deep dive preview, getting ready for Arizona State's third to last game of the season. Really excited to talk about Ralph with that. In the meantime, make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Become a member like Max, like Wes Beasy, like M is going to do again, like Sharon, like Chris, like everybody who's in the chat, Satan and Satin, who's got a green name and a badge next to them. Of course, we appreciate all of our non-members as well, as long as you hit that like button, as long as you're subscribed to PHNX Sports right here. We'll be back with more ASU coverage. We appreciate all y'all being here. You can follow the show at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me at ERIK RUBY. In the meantime, go Devils. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.